He comes only once every 10 years, not 9, not 11, 10, and every single time the clock in Harrow's End seems to hold its breath. No one knows his real name. The children call him the Decade Man. The elders refuse to call him anything at all. They simply lower their voices when the wind shifts and say, "He's back." Harrow's End is not the kind of town where mysteries survive. It's small, stitched together by gossip and shared coffee at Marla's diner. Secrets here are like dust on the windowsills, visible, unavoidable. Yet somehow this stranger slips in and out of our lives like a shadow at sunset. The first recorded sighting was 50 years ago, a tall man in a charcoal coat stepping off the 610 bus that rarely carries more than 2 passengers. He carried no luggage, no smile, just a pocket watch in his gloved hand. He stayed 3 days, no one knows where, and then he vanished. 10 years later he returned, same coat, same watch, not a single wrinkle added to his face. That's when the whispers began to grow teeth. Old Bernard Hale swore the man hadn't aged a day. My Aunt Eliza claimed she saw him standing at the cemetery gates at midnight, staring at a grave that didn't exist yet. Sheriff Dalton tried to question him back in '96, but somehow the conversation ended with the sheriff pale and shaking, unable to recall what had been said. And now it's almost that year again, the 10th year. The air already feels heavier. People are quieter, even the church bells sound unsure of themselves. Who is he? Why does he come here? And why does he leave just when we feel closest to understanding? Stay with me because what happened during his last visit changed everything. And if you believe in mysteries that refuse to die, make sure you like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what you think he really is. Because the next part will make you question time itself. The year he returned in 2006, the sky cracked open with thunder the very moment the bus hissed to a stop. People still talk about that storm. I was younger then. I remember pressing my face against the bakery window, flowers still on my hands, when I saw him step down onto the wet pavement. Same charcoal coat, same polished boots. And that pocket watch, always ticking, always open in his palm as if he were measuring something none of us could see. Marla was the first to approach him that time. Brave Marla, who never backed down from anyone. She offered him coffee on the house. He accepted with a nod so subtle it almost felt like a dream. He spoke only once during that visit. 10 years, he said quietly, glancing at the clock above the diner counter. Right on time for what? No one dared ask. That same night something happened that the town still doesn't understand. Elias Turner, the reclusive clockmaker who hadn't left his shop in months, reopened his doors after the stranger walked past his window. Witnesses say the stranger paused, stared at the antique grandfather clock in the display, and tapped his pocket watch twice. The next morning, Elias was gone, no note, no struggle. Just an open workshop and every single clock inside ticking in perfect, unnatural harmony. Tick, tick, tick. Sheriff Dalton tried again to confront him. This time the stranger simply looked at him with eyes that seemed older than the hills surrounding Harrow's End. Not cruel, not kind, just endless. You'll understand soon, he told the sheriff, but soon never came. On the third day, just before dawn, he stood at the edge of Miller's Bridge. Some say he whispered names into the river. Some say he was counting. Then, as always, he boarded the 610 bus and vanished. Elias Turner was found a year later in another state, alive but confused, claiming he had lost an entire decade of memory. He remembered nothing of the stranger, nothing of the clocks, and that was when fear began to outweigh curiosity, because it wasn't just a visit anymore, it was a pattern, and patterns mean purpose. But the most recent visit, the one that happened 4 years ago, that's when the town realized we might not be waiting for him. He might be waiting for us. 4 years ago, the air in Harrow's End felt different long before the bus arrived. It was as if the town itself knew. Windows were shut tighter, conversations ended mid-sentence. Even the birds seemed to circle lower, restless, uneasy. And when the clock struck 6:10, no thunder came this time, no storm. Just silence so thick it pressed against your ears. The bus doors folded open. And there he was, not older, not slower, exactly the same. I was standing across the street with my brother Micah. He gripped my arm so tightly it hurt. He hasn't changed, he whispered, and there was something fragile in his voice, something almost childlike. This time the stranger didn't go to the diner. He walked straight to the town square, right to the old oak tree. The tree planted a century ago when Harrow's End was nothing more than dust and ambition. Generations carved their initials into its bark, promises, dates, names of lovers who swore forever beneath its branches. He stood there for a long time, then he did something no one expected. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper, and he nailed it to the tree, just one sheet, no envelope, no explanation. When he stepped back, he didn't guard it, he didn't warn anyone away. He simply looked up at the sky, closed his pocket watch with a soft click, and walked toward the boarding house. People were frozen. No one moved for nearly a full minute. Then Mrs. Alder, trembling but determined, stepped forward and tore the paper from the tree. It wasn't a letter, it was a list. 5 names. Micah's name was on it. I still remember the way the color drained from his face. The way the crowd shifted, murmuring, counting, checking. 5 names, 5 ordinary people, a schoolteacher, a mechanic, a florist, my brother. And at the bottom of the page, just 3 words. Before the 10th. Before the 10th, what day, month, year, no date, no signature, just that message hanging in the air like smoke. The stranger stayed 3 days again, spoke to no one. Watched everything, and on the 3rd night, one of the 5 names disappeared. It was Clara Whitmore who vanished first. Clara, with her gentle laugh and ink-stained fingers from grading papers too late into the night. Clara, who never missed Sunday service, who baked peach cobbler for every town gathering. Gone, no broken windows, no signs of struggle. Just her front door left slightly open, swaying in the cold breeze like it was waiting for her to come back. The list had 5 names, now there were 4. Panic didn't erupt all at once, it crept in slowly like frost spreading across glass. Parents began calling their children home before sunset, storefronts closed early, Micah stopped sleeping. I could hear him pacing at night, the floorboards groaning beneath his fear. Before the 10th, he kept whispering, the 10th day since the stranger's arrival was approaching. Sheriff Dalton, older now and worn thin by years of unanswered questions, finally confronted the man in the boarding house lobby. This time the entire town watched. No one wanted another forgotten conversation. "What did you do to her?" the sheriff demanded, his voice cracking. The stranger looked almost sorrowful. "I do nothing," he said quietly. "I witness." "Witness what?" The sheriff pressed him, anger spilling over, but the stranger simply opened his pocket watch and held it up. The ticking seemed louder than it should have been, louder than the room, louder than our breathing. "Time corrects itself," he added. "Corrects what?" "On the 9th night, something happened none of us can explain. Micah woke me before dawn, shaking. I dreamed of him," he said, eyes wide and glassy. "He was standing at the oak tree and the names were fading. We ran to the square. The paper was still nailed to the bark, but Clara's name was gone, not crossed out, not scratched away. Gone as if it had never been writ, and beneath the remaining 4 names, new words had appeared. One remains, 4 names still visible, 4 people still alive, so what did that mean? The 10th day arrived under a blood-red sunrise, and the stranger was nowhere to be found. The 6:10 bus arrived on the 10th morning, empty, no stranger stepping down, no charcoal coat, no polished boots striking the pavement. Just an empty seat near the back where the driver swore someone had been sitting moments before they reached town limits. The stranger was gone, but the list was not. 4 names still carved into that trembling sheet of paper. And beneath them, those haunting words, "One remains." That was the day the truth began to surface, not loudly, not clearly, but like something rising from deep water. Clara returned that afternoon. She walked into town barefoot, clothes clean but outdated, like she had stepped out of another year entirely. Her hair was longer, her face thinner, but her eyes looked older. She claimed she had only been gone a few hours. For us, it had been 9 days. For her, it had been 10 years. 10 years living in a version of Harrow's End that didn't exist anymore. She described buildings that had burned down decades ago. People who had passed away long before she was born, and always, she said, the stranger stood at a distance, watching, never interfering. "I wasn't taken," she insisted, voice trembling but steady. "I was moved." "Moved where?" No one could explain it, not the sheriff, not the priest, not even Elias Turner, who we later realized had likely endured the same impossible shift. Then it happened again. Micah's name began to fade, not from the paper. From photographs, family albums blurred where he once stood. His graduation picture softened at the edges like water soaking into ink. Even my memories felt slippery, like trying to hold onto a dream after waking. One remains, we finally understood. The stranger wasn't choosing victims, he was marking corrections. One person every decade shifted, displaced, removed from the timeline we knew, not killed, not harmed, just relocated. Time correcting itself. And when Micah disappeared on the final hour of the 10th day, there was no scream, no struggle, just a soft click echoing through the square like a pocket watch closing. The paper fell from the oak tree blank. 10 years have almost passed again, the bus will arrive soon. And this time I've started hearing ticking in my sleep.